Hello and welcome to the Joyful Rebels podcast where rebellion meets wellness. We've got Claire and Donna Thomas here, your mother daughter duo, and we're here to bring you our insight, some science, and maybe share some laughs in our pursuit of finding more peace, more joy, and more balance in our physical and mental health. Thank you for listening today, for joining us as we discuss some practical tips to empower you on your journey to living your best life. So, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Today is part two of our discussion on diet culture. So, if you listened to last episode, if you checked it out, we defined diet culture, and it's this idea that thinness, a certain body size and shape, uh, losing weight, your eating patterns, that those equal health and your moral virtue and your social value. It's that insidious lurking thing that probably is affecting all of us, whether we've noticed it or not. Diet culture, it promotes, that ideal body type. And we've got media, we've got things like the wellness and the fitness industry is kind of pounding it into us. And again, whether we're just scrolling through social media or what we see on TV or what we experience when we're just out living in
Mhm,
the world, these things can have an impact on us. It can lead us to doing things like restricting. It can make us view foods as good or bad. We talked about it last time, right? It shows up
mhm.
in a lot of ways that some obvious, some not so obvious. So, we don't always like to be doom and gloom and joyful rebels. So this week, we're going to
Mhm,
talk about ways that we can combat diet culture. So, Mom, we've definitely spent a few weeks now just thinking about, again, acknowledging ways that it's shown up in our lives, but then what can we actually do about it? Having some agency, because I think you'll talk about, Mom, once you shine a light and
mm.
notice it, the grip loosens. So, I'm going to just throw it right over to you to start us off with talking about how we can combat diet culture.
Mm. It's been fun. I'm not going to lie on that. That when we first started talking about it, and even when I reviewed the clips from the last podcast, it was like, oh yeah, and I was kind of shocked, and I couldn't believe it was showing up in my life, and I thought I was on the right side of it. Once I got over that and shined the light on it, and just welcomed it into the conversation and into my mind space, uh, it became less scary, and it also was just then demystified. And I really am happy to report that I feel so much better about it, just spending a short amount of time acknowledging it. So, for anybody that's kind of like, it's not me, I don't have anything to do with it, I'm not suggesting that you have to manufacture an issue, but whatever the thing is, let it in. Let it in. And I love the language of partnering with it. So, I feel like I've been partnering with the diet culture, and I've got a couple of ways. There's many ways to combat it or to partner with it. There's a couple that rang really true for me. And the first one was to be able to at least practice some intuitive eating, which is, trying to go with my hunger cues a little bit more, just not being restrictive. Like, just see, what does that look like? Did I lose my mind? And the answer is no, I did not, but I noticed some patterns. So for me, being more in at eating when I feel hungry and realizing that there's a reason behind that. Like, so an example for me would be if I'm working out at 5:30 in the morning, I will front load my calories because I'm hungrier in the morning. I got up earlier, I moved my body. I was really hungry, so a lot of the many calories for my day or whatever it would be for the day are going to be in the morning. There had been times where I'd be like, I don't want to eat that much in the morning because I want to have more calories left for lunch and dinner, maybe
Mm,
dessert and whatever. It was kind of like, eat now because my body is asking for it. And weirdly enough, I wasn't as hungry later on. I didn't feel like I was out of control because I had gone like too long without eating, and now I'm at this ravenous deficit. So I feel like I could dip my toe in the water of intuitive eating more and trust myself.
mm,
And I appreciated that because I had a sister component to the intuitive eating where I'd actually help run it through more of a critical thinking lens too, where I could question, like, is that like, do I need to not eat that much in the morning so I could save more later? And it was like, it didn't make sense. I worked out, I'm going to eat. And look what happened in my discovery was like, look at that. I was satisfied. I didn't feel like I had a bunch of cravings. So I'm adding more data points to what is reality instead of what I was just fearing and what was lurking from past behavior. So I got lots of traction on that one. I'm like, that's great. And on mornings, if I didn't work out in the morning, then I wasn't as hungry. So I got to follow and ride those waves a little more intuitively. All of those are great steps for me.
Mhm.
And it didn't feel, and that wasn't hard. So that one felt um, successful, if that's a way to look at it, even if I just look at it on the day. So I like it. I'm in real time. I'm not using old tools for ways that I thought before. I'm just trying to be in real time. So that's a win. So I really have liked that. That's number one. I used tried intuitive eating, running it through more of a critical thinking lens of like, doesn't this make sense? And it did. Another one for me is looking at like no foods are off limit, which intellectually I can know that. But I think in the back of my mind, I was like, but those, I don't know if I could stop eating. I'm not sure what that is. You know what was a good hack for me was I don't want to take snacks that I really like and put them somewhere hidden or secretive or away from the mainstream, like pantry. Put it with everything else. Like it doesn't hold any more weight than any other food that's in the pantry. Like that to me was a real symbolic and visual way of being like, you don't get extra credit. You don't get extra bandwidth because it's not any more valuable. And so that simple thing of just everything goes in the pantry, which then was helpful because I cleaned it out and organized it so I can see everything that I have. And now it's intermixed with all the rest of my food. It's like you all get to play nice in the sandbox now, which that felt really good. So I've appreciated like no food's off limits. I can eat what I want. It's probably not as much as I want. And in many cases, I felt very satisfied with a serving size. So again, it's looking at it through who I am now, what I know now, and allowing myself to still grow in areas that had been trouble spots before. Like that, my past is not dictating my future. It's just giving me information on ways that I can show up and how I want to show up. Now I have one more that really was interesting for me, and that I believe that as I was looking at protein specifically and with strength and trying to get more protein in my diet, I don't particularly like all protein sources, and I am trying to get it, but it put it in this hyper focus. And we're
Mhm.
hearing that. We got a lot of messages about that too, where people were like, yeah, that's so much messaging is coming in on getting more protein for women, especially if you're doing strength training. Got it, got it,
Mhm.
got it.
Mhm.
What I found was then I had put like protein and nutrition as a whole on this pedestal. Like it's not one size fits all. It's that we're all unique. But then it turned it into this like weird um special thing that I'm just
Mhm.
never going to get a handle on. I'm never going to be able to get traction on it. And what I did was, again, partnering with it. I'm like, you get in here, you knucklehead. My nutrition has the same amount of weight as my movement, as my rest, as my hydration. Like, you get to play on the team. You don't get to be like the special designated hitter. Because by giving it extra importance, I made it this thing that was bigger than it needed to be. Because all in all, this is so closely linked with my mental health, and I don't know if anybody
Mhm.
else feels that way, but if I feel like I'm in the game and I'm just participating in it, then ultimately where my core values are, if I'm trying, I can feel good about it. Then that helps me dismantle any distorted thoughts of perfectionism, all or nothing, all of these things that, kind of hang out in the background. They're a voice, they're not a very loud one, but we're all in all of these decisions and it feels like it's more integrated.
Mm.
And that felt really good. And better yet, sustainable. It's sustainable. And I think that's the thing I've had the hardest time with all along, as I can do, and this is diet culture in general, these fits and starts, a quick fix and then a retraction and a reload and then try it again. And like you just get tired of that. And then I'll share one example that really drove it home for me. That you guys, you can get like all kinds of weight loss drugs on the internet. Okay, like all the Wegovy's and the Ozempics, and some people are really using that to help them manage. And they have significant amounts of weight to lose, and so I think that it can be very helpful. I'm not an expert on it, but I absolutely see that there's a place for that. So I'm looking online, and I just happened to be on a site, and as I'm scrolling through, I was like, okay, let's see what this looks like as an experiment. I'm going to put in my age, weight, gender, like put that in and see what it tells me. Because I'm thinking, oh, there shouldn't be anything like I'm 5'2", I weigh about 148 as comparison. I know I have like big person energy, big tall person, but I'm 5'2". And I was shocked, and it really helped me put things in perspective. And it was like, yeah, you're eligible for these drugs. And I was like, really? That felt really extreme to me. Like, I want them for people that have a bunch of weight that they need to lose, or they have diabetic situations, but that it was so readily available to me. I interpreted that as like, we're so willing to let people to make the shortcut for in certain circumstances much easier, that it kind of shocked me into like, wow, that's really interesting. Now, I didn't buy anything, but I looked at that and I thought, thank you for providing that example, because I needed to see it. And I needed to feel better about it, because I will always have choices and shortcuts. It is on me whether I want to take that up, or I want to feel better about it mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, that I can find a way to be sustaining in my habits, that I feel good in the size of my body now. And that provided that extreme example for me to let it land in just another place in my heart. What do you think about that, Claire?
Ooh, the first thing I want to say is your sports and baseball analogies in particular, you're really hitting it out of the park right now. So I know in the past we've like lashed on a car analogies. So today is sports. I'm all for it. Um, But yes, 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 with the focusing on things that are sustainable. And I think that really is a joyful rebel thing of, if we want to make these changes in our life, like that's our choice. But if we want to make a change that's going to last, having it be something that's simpler, that's sustainable, that we can carry on in the future. Because that's one of those metrics of diet culture, like the restrictive, the quick, let's lose a bunch of weight quickly, and then, oh, I gained it back. And it's just that up and down that it's not good for you, and it's not sustainable. And so I appreciate you saying that these were things that you could do that made it more sustainable. And I like how you said to partner with the diet culture, because it kind of, we did frame it at first as combating it, but partnering with it, because then it doesn't have to feel so scary. And I feel,
Hmm.
for me personally, uh the the tentacles of diet culture are pretty deep within me. I feel like it's something I've been dealing with since as long as I can remember. So it is something that for me, it feels like it is effort and work to dismantle it, but it feels like good work. And I have made wins with it. So, for example, the intuitive eating, and if you're interested in more in intuitive eating, we did have that interview with Leah Porsche, who talks more about that. There's sources out there to talk about it. And Mom, you explained it. It's that idea of you're honoring your cues. Are you hungry? Are you full? Things like foods aren't bad or good, right? You said they can all live together in one space. And for me, I feel like intuitive eating has been easier said than done. And that's just me having to practice. Like, maybe there's still some noise there. Maybe I'm not really listening. I have those lurking voices that, this is something bad. Like, I'm thinking right now where the excess Halloween candy is hidden. And like, you're just giving me
Hmm.
ideas now of like, no, maybe that's contributing to the ongoing like, it's interesting to hear that it was like an aha, like, oh yeah, like, why am I still hiding it? So a lot about the intuitive eating work that I've been doing has been, I feel like, to make peace with the food that I'm eating, to allow myself to enjoy it. Like, if I'm going to choose to eat something that in the past I thought was bad or I restricted, now I want to actually sit, and instead of every bite being laden with guilt, I want to actually sit and enjoy it. And I'll say, for me, sometimes that's even cereal. Like, before I'd be like, oh no, I don't want. And now I'm like, I'm gonna sit down. Like, I'm loving this bowl of cereal, and it seems like such a simple, small thing, but to be able to enjoy something which in the past would have made me feel bad. Um, finding enjoyment in it. And I love how you talked about the protein thing because I'm struggling with that as well. Because a part of me, I see, the messaging over and over, well, you're strength training. And we have talked about how we do both truly believe that strength training is, you need to be doing it, especially if you're a
Hmm.
woman. But then, well, you need the protein because that's the building block of the muscle. And so you said hyperfixating, like, yes, I find myself, what's my number? How much should I eat in a day? And when we're talking about diet culture, and I love how you talked about, nutrition becomes this thing that's like on this pedestal that we're striving for. And I felt like I completely agree with you with the protein. It was like, hold on a second. Like if I'm force feeding myself, this protein bar when I'm not even hungry, this just seems to be going opposite of what I want to be doing in terms of eating. And so for me, I'm still keeping an awareness of that I do want to eat protein. And so because honestly, if I'm telling the truth, I could probably go a whole day and not eat protein. Like
Hmm.
I love carbs. Like it's just
Same.
so I do want to still think about it. So I like how you even talked about that critical thinking. Like I do want to have a balance. I don't just necessarily just want to go off of what I'm craving at the time, although I think it's okay to honor cravings. But so to be able to think about it. So for me, that's been just keeping it in my mind, trying to make sure that I have protein sources I enjoy available. Because if there's going to be 6 steps for me to get the protein, from the fridge, so I'm not like, it's not happening. And I
Yeah.
can only have so many shakes and bars in one day. I'm just like, "Ugh, I don't even want this anymore." So it's just been, keeping an eye on it. But then also it's that part again with the guilt, not feeling bad if I'm not like hitting it. Like I'm not a bad person if I'm not hitting my goals. I'm not a bad person if I'm eating a food that in the past was, evil or bad in my book. So I feel like when you said that mental health is tied into this, I completely agree. Like it's been a lot more for me, not even necessarily about the food itself, but the
Mm.
thoughts that have been surrounding the foods and then the action. So for me, I would feel like I love hearing that you've had these wins. Like, I want to celebrate that. That's amazing. For me, I feel like work in progress, but also celebrating the small wins. Like even again, like I said, man, I'm gonna go move my Halloween candy. Like it doesn't need to be this hidden shameful thing that I have. The second thing I want to talk about, because one part of the diet culture is the food. The second thing for me is deals with, body image, right? We have to look a certain way to be valued, to be good. And so one of the things that I've been working on that I guess you could call it a tip, but just something, if you want to, again, either partner with or do something about that diet culture where you're shining a light on it, is really just the respecting of my body, accepting of my body, which again, much easier said than done. But one thing I want to point out is like, genetics are a thing and shape
Hmm.
and size are to some extent determined by your genetics. And, whether you think that's controversial or not, if you think about you're scrolling social media and you see these fitness influencers, some people can be the same weight on the scale and the same, percentage of body fat, and they look completely different. So this idea that I need to look like that, like even if I got to their, statistics of the, like I might not look like that. Thus, this is crazy. I don't to even have that as this ideal, although we know it's pushed and we see it in social media. And so for me, one example that this has showed up is like just being okay with my legs. When I work out and lift weights, like my legs, they put on muscle very easily. I remember growing up, oh, she has man legs, like, and just being so ashamed. And even as an adult, not wanting to work out my legs too much because my jeans won't fit. And we were talking about this earlier, Mom, but like, if I never wear jeans again,
Yeah.
it'll be okay. I will be
No
okay with
loss.
that. So just, this idea of accepting like that's if I want to be strong, and this will get to my next point in a second, then that's what's going to happen. I can build muscle on my legs, which is actually awesome. Like I can be very strong in my legs. And we know that just by aging and hormones changing, we're going to lose a certain amount of muscle as we age. So the idea where I'm at now is how much can I build? Right? To counteract that, to have a bigger base before that happens. And I'm like, if I can easily put on muscle in my lower half, I want to embrace that because, and this is my last point, when I'm thinking about diet culture, I want to start thinking more forwards and not backwards. So
Mm.
last episode we talked about like oh, if you've had kids, like your pre-pregnancy body, or if you're thinking about your body when you were 20 or 25, I don't want to think about that body like ever again. No offense to that person. I love that version of Claire. She had to be so that I am now. It's not, a regret or an anger, anything like that. But that was a weaker person for me. That was a smaller person, but they weren't as strong. And that person couldn't do all the things that I can do now. That person could not go take out 3 kids and deal with all that and, be holding a tantruming 5-year-old. Like I would love to honor this body, this person that I am now, but also thinking forward when we said this last week, but my old lady body, like I want to continue to do the things I'm doing now. I don't want to be limited because my focus was on being smaller. Because really, smaller can come down to less muscle mass, weaker. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
want that. And we know more now. We know things like bone density, which is related to muscle mass, is correlated with longevity, how long you're going to live. We know things like grip strength is correlated with longevity. So again, another, push for a strength training, woo, woo, like definitely it's a good thing, but that's what I care about now. I want to think about forwards. I don't want to think about back to the pair of pants that I'll never fit into again. I don't want to think back to the ice cream that I had last night and feeling guilty about that. I want to put my focus on forward and what I can do today in small sustainable steps to get me to where it is. So if it is thinking about my protein without overthinking, without hyperfixating, right? If it's about considering nutrition to be as important as movement and making sure that I'm doing my movement and my strength training. So again, like balance keeps coming up for me. And it can be hard again when I feel like there's these deep, dark tentacles of diet culture and they're taking up space in my brain, even when I don't want them to. So what can I do? And I love how you said, Mom, like actually thinking and talking about it is something
Hmm.
that you can do. And then maybe we're going to have some conversations about intuitive eating and making peace with your food. Maybe it's about trying, and again, I know, the third time I'll say it, easier said than done, but acceptance of the body and just realizing that this is the body that you got, and it's not meant to look exactly like something that you saw somewhere else, even if we've gotten messaging that it is. And I want to take this body with me into the future and enjoy. It's about what I want to do in the future, not
Hmm.
how I'm going to look doing it. How does that land with
Amen.
you? Woo!
No, and being older, you'll get more opportunity to see where this freedom to move and move through your life how you want to, which is based on strength and vitality, like that comes into play a whole lot more. And you get this daily reminder. You get to see people that are your age. Like sometimes when you're in your 30s, 20s, 30s, even 40s a little bit, everybody seems to be kind of the same, but there starts to be a gap. There starts to be a big gap, and there may have been a gap before, but it's more visible now. And really for me, what it is freedom and allowing, thinking about the things that you're trying not to think about only makes you think about them more.
Mm,
But progress can be made, and I am encouraged that I feel like so much different and better about it, where it was like, oh, I didn't realize how much it was. I was being truthful. I wasn't seeing like, oh, this was sitting there and I was just kind of ignoring it, like I was hiding the candy or I was hiding the snacks or whatever. Put them back in. Let's see what it looks like. And I'm pleasantly surprised that they are holding much less hold on my daily thoughts, on the choices that I make. They're just sunsetting. And we can expect that to happen. We can look forward to that happening. And that's part of like doing some of the work of just letting it in. Partner, you can come along for the ride here, but you will not be the driver. And that is encouraging. I hope you guys listening find that encouraging, because that's been, well, not that I'm the be all end all, but that is one experience that I've had. And in this particular topic that I thought might have had, Claire, I'd be interested to wonder how you feel about things in another month. So like you'll get more time to think about it, and it will sunset even more. And I appreciate your candor and your honesty on that, because wherever you're landing on this now, that's not where you'll finish. And we
mm,
are works in progress. And when we can partner with all the emotions and all the ways that we move through time and space, and we put history in its proper perspective, then we can look forward and we can build how we want these years to look like, where instead of it being like you're just kind of older, and that can be anything like over 35 these days, for gosh sakes, to these are the we're doing this for a reason. We're training for life and for freedom of movement and a way to live in your body that is honoring, and it feels good, and it's robust, and it allows us to live lives that are with peace and ease. We have peace and ease in there, and I want that for everybody. And Claire, I know you do too, because that's the basis for Joyful Rebels. Peace and ease. And in order to get there, you got to look at some of the stuff in the rearview mirror, but not too much, just enough.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Peace and ease. And it sounds like you're setting us up to do a follow up on this topic at some point in the future. So we might be revisiting diet culture part 3 at some point in the future. But you know what? Thank you out there for listening to us today, for joining us. We love this community. And yeah, you're just taking a peek. You're thinking about how it relates to you. You're taking some of these tips that you've heard us say, trying them on, seeing how they work for you. That's the Joyful Rebel way. Until next time, Rebels.